Well, let me add to that. He was speaking specifically about a fire, but I was visiting with a board member today of a water district, and they are facing a potential disaster in their water district because their water tank is under peril of possibly collapsing. Do they need to plan for that? Not only from how we're going to get water, but how we're going to explain this, you know, and maybe start doing it when? Right now, you know, or yesterday. Yeah, and I was like, holy smokes. I mean, that's going to be significant. Fire chief I used to work for, he says, George, we think we're really important. He says, you shut off somebody's water and watch how mad they get, you know. The fire truck doesn't show up, no big deal. You turn their water off.
I would say that would call for an emergency board meeting because at any time,
Well,
their customers could be out of service.
yeah, I wouldn't think you need an emergency board meeting. I say you need a board meeting and you need to plan for that.
Well, I was also referring about the natural disaster. I mean, when a natural
Right.
disaster hits, you're going to want to be as prepared as you can be. And then if it hits, you're going to want an emergency board meeting for the board to.
You may, absolutely. Hopefully you have some policies in place that your organization can function under so you don't have to scramble. Because what happens when you try to bring, especially if you're a 5-member board, when there's whatever disaster is going on, what are you going to have trouble doing with that board? Getting them together. Okay? All right, let's let the panelists go on. Thank you for your point.
You know, as Cliff mentioned, you know, you need to have agreements in place with other entities, whether it be the sand and gravel place. Like in our little district, it's probably going to be flooding is going to be the most immediate ongoing problem. An earthquake is something totally different. But along with that, you need signed agreements. You need agreements as far as if somebody gets injured while working for, you know, helping your district out. How's that covered? Anything else? As far as equipment, payment, use of trucks, vehicles, anything. So you try and you need to get that as much in order as you can ahead of time so that when it comes time, you don't have to worry about that after the fact.
Mark, you had a question before we go on?
I wanted to make a comment. This is, the timing for this is all districts and fire, water, sewer, and earthquake. You need to participate with your local emergency planning committees. And if you haven't got one, you need to get one started. Because this is where this all comes together in the beginning so that when it
Very good point.
you're prepared.
Yep, very good point. Roy?
Well, we're fortunate in the fire service, and I don't know how many people here at fire service versus the other disciplines, but we do a lot of pre-incident management planning. That's part of been our business for quite some time. And what I would ask the rest of the districts to do is take advantage of some of these skills that we have developed. If there's a fire district around you, get in touch with them. They'll help you kind of work through some of these scenarios and how to plan for this. We train ourselves in pre-incident management planning and looking at those possible scenarios and what we put in place. And we do that for a typical structure fire. We put a lot of things in place. Not to imply that your discipline doesn't have some plans for what water districts do in the event tanks collapse and sewer districts get water or sewer water overflowed. I don't know your business, I really don't. But I do know how to plan for emergencies and look in the future and go through that scenario development. And you hit the point about most counties have some sort of a county emergency management or planning officer, manager, system in place. You want to make sure that you work with that and try to do as much upfront stuff as you can. You hit it right on the head about doing stuff. Who knows that the next flood is going to take your bridge out and strand 3 or 4 neighborhoods. You just can't even imagine that scenario until it happens, and now you're dealing with that. So take advantage of the other resources around you, is what I would suggest you do.
Right. Very good point that Mark made back there. Every county is required to have some form of emergency management. And most counties have developed emergency planning teams. Some of them call them, like we have one in Columbia County, it's called SEPA. But there's all types of these systems in place that you need to find out if your district's playing. Are you a player in that to help? Clark, excuse me. Want to add?
Just a couple of minor things. This scenario is, assumes the small district, volunteers, that sort of thing. People are there on a community basis, obviously. But I think that whether you've got a smaller district with a lot of volunteers or, a lot of paid staff, one thing to account for is that your people, which may include you, their first priority probably is going to be, is my family okay? And so you have to account for, that kind of peace of mind, and is there a way to accommodate that? And I think that goes into your planning thing. The other thing is, and I think it's really been touched on, but whether you're a water district or a fire district or whatever, schools, parks, special districts are, we like to say, we're government closest to the people. Well, the fact is, we are, and in many areas of the state, we're it. It's county government in spots, and it's us. And so, your structure, your building, your whatever may become the gathering point or the focal point for the community. So at least at Tuolumne Valley, we've tried to look at it from the standpoint that, our fire stations may be accommodating a lot of people showing up for aid and help. And so I think you've got to have an assumption that you may be that point of contact. And the water district example might be, on some smaller water districts, you might often have a well site at your main facility, main yard and all that. People may be showing up there to get water. I mean, assuming you've got a generator, you can keep the pump running. So now, is there a delivery system? Is there blizzards and things like that that we can have available? So think about yourself as that community gathering point as well. And I would incorporate that in your planning.
All right. The last point I have, and we'll take questions from you, is that no matter what the size of your district, you may be that local government that people turn to. I was recently working with a small road district, 26 homes on their road, dead-end road. If that community gets cut off, what's the only local government they have? Those volunteers that are working with that road district, they're gonna look at those people, well, you must know something, so just kind of gotta think about that from that perspective. You put yourself in that position, which is good. Questions, comments? Sir?
I think, you're talking about good ideas, and you gotta remember personally,
Very good point.
you have this financial responsibility in the state of Oregon. So you say, I'm gonna spend $50,000 to get to those 26 people. You're just thinking about the money. You're personally liable. You need to know what your liability is, what your district's liability is. Counties can spend money however they want. They have really broad authority.
Mhm.
That's next finance director for the county. Special districts are really limited in what you can do, and how you can spend money. And you don't want anybody to die, but you also don't want to go to jail.
Exactly.
You need to know that. You need to know before the disaster happens.
It's all part of the good planning with your neighbors and friends. I mean, your other fellow districts in the county. Sir?
Okay, so to the point that you brought up about some of us are from really small districts that have no employees and we're all volunteer run. And my particular district, we are the only people in our community that are elected or official or whatever you want to call it. So we do get lots of calls from people in our community about things other than our water district. So at what point do you start exceeding your charter and you start running into potential conflicts of interest or whatever other conflicts might come up because you're deviating from water. So if we have a road problem, we either do something about it or go to the county and ask for help. I mean, are we getting out of our charter?
As long as you're not, I think the gentleman back there was hitting on it, as long as you're not using water district resources to do somebody else's work without some cooperative agreement that allows you to do that and get you reimbursed for it, you're gonna be fine, okay? As long as you're focusing on the water. The reason I bring up that especially in some smaller communities where you become a focal point is because, you are the contact. So what in a planning process, have answers for those people. We can't deal with that, however, here's who to contact, and we have contacted them for the area, whatever. You've shifted that So you're not taking action, but you're at least helping your community. That's all. So you get to deflect some of the potential criticism that you may not deserve. That's the point I was trying to make. Okay, sir.
In Clackamas County, we have intergovernmental agreements where we actually work back and forth with one another, and they have collected a list of all the resources available in the county and statewide. So if you have a problem, you can go on their website and you can actually do it right on your computer. You can ask for help, and they will find help for you and send it to you if you are in a disaster mode.
If you've declared an emergency,
This
you've
summer,
worked through the
when
system.
Woodland had their fire, we were contacted that they needed variable voltage reader boards, which we had in our yard, and to take them up there because they needed them for traffic control. And we actually took the variable mesh reader board to Woodland and delivered them to them for that fire.
At the request of who?
At the request of Clackamas County. for the
Right,
emergency
and that's what you're referring to. Work through the emergency management, and now there's an agreement to do it. You're not outside your scope, okay? All right, anything else? We're not losing you, are we? All right, let's go to the next scenario. That wasn't very well received, all right? Where are we at? Scenario 4. All right, scenario 4, concerned disruptive citizen. I put a happy picture in here because they can be happy people. They're just concerned. They're being a little disruptive at your meeting. District board is approached during a public meeting by a member of community who wants immediate answers to his or her concerns. Happens? I think it happens to all districts. During 3 consecutive board meetings, the same community member demands answers to his or her concerns with performance, is concerned about the performance of district staff. So now it's specific. They want answers because the staff isn't meeting some of their needs, okay? During the next 2 board meetings, so now we're like 3, 4, 5 board meetings into this. The same community member accuses the board of holding illegal meetings. Now he or she's saying you're holding illegal meetings. And she even cites it. More than 2 board members are meeting at the board chair's place of business every Wednesday morning. Okay. Do you have more than one issue here? Okay. How are we going to approach this? And I think we're asking David. David's going to take it.
First off, this has never happened at Scappoose, so I want you to know that. Because George used to be on the board.
I live in their district,
Right.
believe me.
So I think the first thing out of the hat on this one is that the first time this citizen comes up and presents this problem, the board is going to immediately say, this is the first we've heard of it, there will be no decision tonight. Because this is the first time you've heard it. Now, the next thing I would say as a board member would be that I would ask that citizen to put it in writing and take it to the general manager, chief, whatever, to present it there so it can be worked on, and then it would come back to the board meeting for discussion with the board so that we have some facts.
At a future meeting.
Future meeting, yes, a future meeting. Now, the fact that this one has gone to 3 meetings suggests that that hasn't happened. But that is what has to happen on this in order to make it work. As far as the last part on meeting at the, the board chair's place of business, whether they're discussing board business or not, there's that appearance. So whether there's no board discussion going on, there's an appearance, and I'm sorry, but that just has to stop. You just can't, you just got to get away from that whole image. And then if they are discussing board information, then when they come to the next board meeting, they're got to have that whole discussion all over again. They can't just walk in there and make a decision based on any discussion they were having at the local restaurant or whatever. So you have to come back in and have the full discussion again, so everybody hears everything pro or con, so they know why you're making the decision you're making. So, but it just leads to all sorts of potential problems. You need to avoid that entirely. So.
All right.